who said this in 2017 about a man who has pleaded guilty to accepting bribes from a Kremlin stooge in return for making pro-Russia statements in the European Parliament. I have worked with Nathan Gill over a period of years and he's been terrific. He's never ever let me down. He's as honest as the day is long. I asked you whether it was A, Joseph Goebbels, B, Nigel Farage, or C, Vladimir Putin, and the answer is A. No, the answer is B, Nigel Farage, once again demonstrating his impeccable judgment and indeed taste in colleagues and politicians. Someone called Zia Ysuf, who is not elected to any role but has been doing the interview rounds for Reform UK today, was asked by, I think, just one interviewer about this case when he was out there confirming or amplifying the Daily Mail's lies about Keir Starmer earlier today. Here he is on BBC Breakfast.
Anybody else in your party share his views?
Whose views?
Nathan Gill's views.
No, again, I've never the first time I'd ever heard his name or seen his name was in news reports. This is somebody who was active in what was an extremely nascent party at the time, many years ago. I've never spoken to him. Most people in the senior leadership team have never really even heard of the guy.
Our viewers have just seen pictures. Sorry, let me just explain. Let me just be fair to you, because you can't necessarily see what's going out on screen. We've just shown our viewers some pictures of Nigel Farage with his arm around him, holding a union flag. They obviously knew one another pretty well.
Well, I don't think, whatever that footage is, Nigel meets tens of thousands of people on an annual basis, ultimately, and he can't be held accountable for the actions of every single person whom he comes into contact with. But of course, look, given he has pleaded guilty, I have no concerns at all in telling you that is atrocious behaviour, and we condemn it.
That's extraordinary. Nigel Farage meets tens of thousands of people, and presumably it could have been any one of them that he decided to make leader of Reform UK in Wales in 2021. Where do they find these people? Absolutely extraordinary, almost as extraordinary as having him on your radio programme for an interview and not asking him about this. But just in case anybody needs any more help, here is Nathan Gill on Russia Today just a few years ago.
He's going out on a high, and who can blame him for doing that?
But Article 50 has not even been invoked yet. There's even talk of legal challenges, and it might not even happen at all.
No, listen, I've just had lunch with Nigel Farage, and he told me that he is adamant that he believes that Article 50 will be invoked. He said if he thought it wasn't going to be, he would never have resigned today.
So, close friend, close colleague, appointed to the leadership of the party in Wales, and yet, according to Zia Ysuf, who I'm told is the chairman of the party, nobody knew who he was. Somebody's lying to you. I wonder who it might be. And when I say close friend, close colleague, I should also say fellow admirer of Vladimir Putin and indeed defender of Russian interests when it comes to the carnage in Ukraine. Oh, what a tangled web we weave when first we practice to deceive. It was from the Old Bailey in London that Lizzie Dearden filed on this case on Friday. Lizzie, give us the full rap sheet, as it were, before we continue.
Hello. So we should say that there's still a lot we don't know, because all we have had is a series of pleas to 9 charges that Nathan Gill faced, and all he did was get up and give those pleas. But what he admitted was 8 charges of bribery in 2018 and 2019, when he was paid by a pro-Russian Ukrainian politician who now we think lives in Russia and has been sanctioned under the anti-Russian sanctions program for pro-Russian political influence internationally. Nathan Gill was paid by that man for a series of activities when he was a member of the European Parliament, first for UKIP, then for the Brexit Party. Those included making specific speeches, organising meetings, and also appearing on a Ukrainian news channel, which was eventually banned by the Ukrainian government as Russian propaganda.
Were we expecting a guilty plea?
No, actually, we were all kind of caught on the hop. It was. There's something called the terror list at the Old Bailey, which is now a kind of terror and espionage list where a very senior judge kind of assigns different cases to different places. And normally you're just there to get dates in your diary rather than something major like this happening. So it came as quite a surprise. And I should say that there was one count that he denied a count of conspiracy to commit bribery, which covered a slightly longer period between 2018 and 2019, and was a kind of general count to encompass what the prosecution said was a wider agreement between Nathan Gill and his Ukrainian kind of handler. And he denied that, but he admitted all the individual instances. So the prosecution decided not to go to a trial about that first count, and we're going straight to sentencing for the wider case.
When is the sentencing, and what more might we discover when it does unfold?
So the sentencing is happening on the 21st of November, and that will be the first time that we actually hear Nathan Gill's case. In terms of, he probably won't make a statement himself, but the barrister representing him is likely to give what they normally call mitigation, any sort of reason or justification or excuse or mitigating circumstances about why he entered into this arrangement in the first place. And that's really what we don't know, because we have the dates of these individual instances, but we have no idea about how he even came to be in touch with this man and how the agreement actually came to be made.
And how much do we know about the interventions that were actually made in the House? Because some of the ones I've seen, to be fair, I've heard other members of his political party make very similar points, albeit that we're not aware of them being in receipt of any bribes from Kremlin stooges. It's the idea that Russia was justified in the invasion of Crimea and the usual guff about NATO posing a threat on their borders, and essentially Kremlin-defined talking points that I've heard other politicians make, but he is the only one suspected or known to have accepted money from this character.
So there were two speeches on the indictment, and one was in December 2018. So in the timeline of the war in Ukraine, this was before the full-scale invasion in 2022, but it was after the war started in the region known as the Donbass in 2014. And his speech was actually about what he called the freedom of the press. And it was about two Ukrainian news outlets which years later were ultimately banned as being a sort of arm of the Russian state or Russian interests. And he was essentially saying that Ukraine shouldn't move against or ban those outlets. And he made a very similar speech regarding those two outlets and what he called freedom of the press a few months later. And actually, the outlets that he talked to in those speeches to the European Parliament, he was also paid to appear on himself under those bribery arrangements.
So a sort of Ukrainian equivalent of Russia today, then, or perhaps even more closely allied with?
Essentially, yes. Okay. And the man who owns those channels, try and walk with me here. He's a guy called Viktor Medvedchuk, and he is very close to Vladimir Putin. And in fact, he's so close to Vladimir Putin that one of the things that Nathan Gill was paid to do was to arrange an event for this man, Viktor Medvedchuk, to present what he called a peace plan for Ukraine to the European Parliament. And the very next day, literally the day after, Viktor Medvedchuk was with Vladimir Putin in a meeting that was photographed and sort of broadcast by the Kremlin itself. They released a transcript where he told Vladimir Putin all about this great event, and he made reference to meeting a British MEP who we think was Nathan Gill, and Vladimir Putin basically said, "That's great, we approve of it, sounds wonderful."
Gosh, I suppose it merits a mention at this point that Gill's close friend and colleague Nigel Farage regularly got paid to appear on Russia Today and has also made comments about how much he admires Vladimir Putin and how justified that original invasion of Crimea was, but absolutely no suggestion that he's accepted any bribes from anybody to make those interventions in public life. Do we know any more about Voloshin, about Oleg Voloshin, the official sort of on the hook for actually making the payments?
Yes, so he was an official in the kind of pre-Maidan protest, if anyone remembers that. So in 2014, the Ukrainian government, as was run by a guy called Viktor Yanukovych, who was perceived to be very close to Russia and eventually fled the country and gave up his government because of large-scale protests. Oleg Voloshin was that guy's spokesperson for the foreign ministry. So he was a very senior official in that Kremlin-backed Ukrainian government that then collapsed. And since then, he's been a part of various pro-Russian Ukrainian political groups and campaign groups and parties, all of which in their different forms have now been banned. We believe he's now living in Russia, and he has been sanctioned by both Britain and the US, and he has been sanctioned specifically for pro-Russian influence activities.
You probably won't comment on this, Lizzie, you're far too professional, but why am I relying on someone who has been filing for the New York Times to bring me this level of detail in this case rather than a British newspaper?
I mean, no shade to my colleagues. I'm sure everyone's looking into it. I think the fact of the matter is we were all caught a bit off guard, and I have the luxury of time that a lot of my court reporting colleagues don't have.
What a pro.